Thank you for staying with us. Now, the new trend in kidnapping for ransom in the Sahel is a significant shift from a financial venture to a strategic weapon of war. Because for decades, extremist groups primarily targeted Westerners and wealthy foreigners to secure massive ransoms, which became the main source of financing for their operations and expansion across the region. However, an analysis of 24 years of data shows that since around 2019, the primary motivation has changed, as profit is now a secondary goal. So kidnappings have surged, but the vast majority of victims are now local Sahelian citizens. Armed groups use these abductions, which are frequently carried out by forces like JNIM, as a strategic tool to assert territorial control, as we've seen in some parts, even in Nigeria, punish communities loyal to rival factions, gain local intelligence, and recruit members, making the practice an integral part of the ongoing conflict and instability. And joining us to speak more on this, we have Abraham Great. He's an African affairs analyst, and also Akpobi Elvis, executive director, Not Too Young to Lead initiative in Delta State. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining me at this time.
Good evening.
So let me begin with you, Abraham. Let's start with the headline, finding and data suggesting that kidnapping has moved from financial imperative to what researchers are calling an instrument of war. If the goal is no longer, just funding, what does this tell us about the strength of these groups? Do they no longer need our money, or have they just found a more terrifying currency, which is human lives?
For having us, and I'm grateful for always being here on News Central. I'd just like to remind us that it's very important that we don't take our attention away from the economy of the issue, because you cannot solve the insurgency or insecurity without realizing and sticking to the point that it is an economy. So if you look from the discussions that we've had in the past or that is ongoing on this, you realize that insecurity doesn't start today. It started many decades ago. I mean, I was born in Lagos and I grew up in Lagos. And I remember in the 80s, before then, you have stories of foreigners being kidnapped. The famous one in 1979 when a French expatriate was kidnapped. And you see, growing up, even in Lagos, let alone the northern part of Nigeria at the time, we had a common term among Yoruba or the people who live in Lagos there, where we call bomo bomo. I recall that being in primary school, one of the reasons why you will cry to have a driver, take you to school, or to have an adult follow you to school, is the fact that we had that entrenched into us that children were missing. So, but as the activity progresses and became more dangerous, government and citizens alike must refocus our attention in scientifying the data, the progression of these insurgencies, and to be able to trace the data to know exactly what is happening. And the core thing that I see here is an economy. If the economy of insecurity does not exist, there would not continually be, especially in increasing in scale. So if we must attack this issue, I'm of the opinion that we must never take our attention away, that it has become a routine economic activity. If somebody is not benefiting from it, in it, somewhere, you will not have it continue as such. We understand that there is the religious strand to it. There is the ethnic, cleansing strand to it. There is the land grabbing strand to it. But all of it can be traced to the science of the progression of the, activity in itself.
Okay, now let's come to you, Elvis. We used to see kidnapping as a transactional crime, and now it's described as a tool for expansion and consolidation. Can you explain to the audience, how physically abducting a village elder or a local doctor helps an insurgent group govern a territory? What is the mechanism there?
Charity, they say begins at home. I want to start with the experience and information I have with what's happening around within my country, Nigeria. So for me, I believe that every country they are being plagued with one or two challenges, and we're plagued with kidnapping at the moment as one of the issues we're faced with. And let's not forget too that kidnapping, insurgency, banditry started from a particular local government. I wouldn't want to mention. And at then we were nonchalant about it. We're like, let me say critical stakeholders were nonchalant about it. Because as far as I'm concerned, those that were who contacted governors with our votes, when they were sworn into office, they vowed to protect lives and properties, which means that protecting life and property means you secure the lives of people you govern. So I think as at then, people were nonchalant about the fact that it was in a particular region, but lately it's creeping into other regions. And back then, like you said, it was just about let's make money and all that. So for me, I believe, I may be wrong, but I believe that it became a tool. Now it's not a tool to either for a particular region to hold sway of, okay, we are in charge, we are not in charge. We've seen cases where people even come out to negotiate on behalf of these kidnappers. And in insane countries, I've read quotes where some country presidents say they don't negotiate with kidnappers or people that subscribe to terrorism. All they do is send them to hell and for God or whatever they believe in to forgive them. So lately, it's not about picking up kidnapping the people that are related to a particular ethnic group. Well, the reasons for this kidnap, I may not know, but what I know is that I think there are political undertones to most of all this. We've seen cases too where people who were given privilege to become to hold critical offices, when they were not in power, they came out to say, I don't know if it was because of political reason, they said that if insecurity, insurgency, kidnapping, it becomes a tool in any government for more than 24 hours, meaning to an extent the government is involved. So at the moment now we are faced with it's a general issue. People cannot, for Nigeria at the moment, people can rarely travel from one place to another. While I will appreciate the fact that I think the president is working around the clock and other governors, because I'm not sure they will be ready, they will feel so comfortable that the first promise they made to secure life and property, they're having issues with it. The fact remains that they've gravitated from kidnapping for ransom money to kidnapping people who we even thought that people never thought that would be kidnapped. So I feel it's trying to prove a point that okay, we're in charge of this region. Okay, or for me, it's because electioneering is coming. Our electoral process will start very soon, and people want to prove a point. And I think every fiscal stakeholder should get on deck and flatten that curve.
Oh, okay. You just talked about kidnapping people. Let's come back to you, Abraham. Abraham, I want us to look at the targets now, because the report notes a distinct shift, from expatriates or Westerners who are no longer the primary targets. Does this shift, represent a success of international security measures, or is it simply a tactical decision by insurgents that local lives are easier currency to spend?
What happens is repercussion. In the past, when you have foreigners, kidnapped from the 70s, like I said, the tools or the mechanism for the host country of those expatriates to retrieve their member or their citizen were more difficult. But as the world become more sophisticated, you've seen, for example, the example of when some Americans were kidnapped, you see how decisive America was in coming to pick their citizens. So these people in these criminal activities already are aware that the foreigners are no longer the easy target. Also, the days of money papers, and dropping, paper and what have you by foreigners is no longer as easy. So local currency is easy to deal with because they can be tracked with foreign currencies. And that is why they could kidnap 1 to 4 foreigners, but they will instead, the equivalent for the locals is to take 300 children. And the moment ransom was introduced and nearly normalized, it becomes an economy. And the thing is that in overcoming this, you cannot born, shoot or born an economy out of existence. You use systems, policies, intentionality. You have to take politics out of dealing with such kind of criminal economy. When we study war, we study insurgencies from around the world, we realize that among several indicators of insecurity are 2 or 3 major prevalent before our face in Nigeria, one of which is religion. Religion plays a major part. So either it is the way that every form of religion that have come into Africa, particularly Nigeria, the manner in which they all came into Nigeria, even though I'm a pastor, but the reality is that almost a lot of religion came into Nigeria through guns. So is there repentance from this approach, or there is still a religious undertone of trying to reclaim territories or to claim territories in the name of certain gods, or to worship or to follow certain doctrines? And if that is the case, you will see empowerment from powers that are beyond your local power or federal government. What I'm saying by that is that if peradventure there is a country somewhere that is a lot more richer than Nigeria that wants its own religion, maybe because one other religion has been entrenched so much into that country and they want to have the upper hand, they will invest millions and billions of dollars because there is a religious undertone. There is a conquest to mind. So it does not matter how much is spent. Now, when that happens, you will see a pattern. We've seen this pattern in Northern Africa. You see the same pattern in the Sahel. You see the same pattern in Sudan, in what's this country that Trump is dealing with right now? Somalia. Now, come down into Nigeria. What that happens is this. These people will come and they will tell you that they want oil license, they want mining license, but what they're actually doing is that they are empowering and enriching Nigerian elites the more. That some of those elites with religious fanaticism that are unaware, they will just think they are doing transactions, and before they know it, they have relationships with some of the most powerful, sophisticated, religious agenda people on earth. So how do you then resist somebody that you think you're dealing with legitimately, business, maybe you are doing gold, that you are mining illegally anyway, the federal government of your country is not receiving all the taxes. And those people said to you, you know what, we're going to back you up with 6 billion, take over all the territory. You will gather all the locals in your area because you think your family is made for life. Now, this pattern is not only in Nigeria. It's right there in Congo. It's right there in all part of the Sahel. Is the way that certain religion empowers people. They become more and more, rich. They become so rich that they do not even know that they are criminals. But what they will think they are doing is that they are protecting the gold. They are protecting the lithium. This land, I bought it. It's my own land. I've bought, 600 hectares. There is lithium on it. I just put my locals on it. But the real people that are actually backing it up from wherever country they are empowering with equipment to secure those places.
Okay.
And they're empowering with funds.
Yeah. Let's quickly move to Elvis. Elvis, Abraham, I understand what you said, about the economy and everything, but, the end is that, when you talk about political economy of war, the ransoms still being paid by impoverished families, making these families sometime, sell their land, sell their cattle and everything, permanently decapitating the economic future of some of these rural communities as well. Now, coming back to you, Elvis, this is a critical point that often gets buried because the data implicates state security forces and also self-defense militias in these kidnappings as well. So if the supposed protectors, are using the same tactics as the terrorists themselves, what does it say about the social contract in the Sahel? Is it completely dead?
If they're using the same tactics, meaning it's completely dead. And oftentimes, from what I've noticed, there's always a lot of their intelligence are being compromised. Those that are meant to be protecting the people. A lot of their military apparatus and all that are mostly compromised. And like uh, like we have back here in Nigeria is if you people need to, it's a lot of persons, a lot of these kidnappers, they are being recruited because they lack, most of them lack exposure. Most of them is feel like they are recruited via religion and all that. But the fact remains that our security apparatus across Africa needs to be very, very strong in the sense that firstly, their liberation process should be increased. Because when people are financially deprived, they become very, very vulnerable. If you go across, let me use Nigeria as an example. You've seen videos of our military men, officers complaining about what they are eating while protecting lives and properties and all that, and how those who in the line of duty lost their lives, their families are suffering. That alone damping the enthusiasm of military officers who are meant to be protecting people, who are meant to go after these kidnappers. So for me, their tactics should be changed. It should start from those that are making policies. Those are that are the aim of affair in our military apparatus, mostly with intelligence gathering and then being very, very discreet about it, about intelligence gathering, because I believe that most of these kidnappers, they already know the tactics of the military apparatus and they seem to be ahead of the curve when it comes to the activities of these people. But aside that, it's good we still all encourage them to be more proactive, but very, very most importantly, they should be discreet with their strategies. And I think with that, we'll flatten the curve of kidnapping.
Mm. All right, now, just before we wrap up, let's hear your final thoughts. We'll start with Elvis, because first of all, we actually talk about the likes of JNIM and Al-Qaeda affiliates, but recent reports actually suggest a criminal outsourcing model where bandits kidnap and sell the victims to jihadists. So are we witnessing the professionalization of a kidnapping supply chain? In 1 minute, if you can, please.
Yes, I think we are already. And for me, this kidnapping issue is not what should be handled with leave blows. The fact remains that people need to be reorientated on a lot of people that are even recruited into this kidnapping. They don't know. Mostly the young folks, they don't know. They should provide a ladder of social mobility for mostly young people, opportunities for young people in these countries. And because when people are poor, they become vulnerable. Above all, every stakeholder needs to be deliberate about protecting life and properties.
Okay. All right. So let's have your final thoughts as well, Abraham.
Thank you. I think it's a little bit controversial. I've often said this, that when a society refuses to protect its people, violence will become the new order. And I think one of the ways to do that is that to watch patterns and suspend certain patterns. I think the pattern of election in Nigeria is contributing hugely to the insecurity, because it is very hard for me as a researcher, as an academia, to be able to separate the pattern of insurgency always increasing 18 months or 2 years into the next election. We see this pattern in America as well, where there will be one form of insurgency, foreign policy need to intervene because America wins its election by foreign policy, immigration. You see the talk about immigration, the next election now, you see the issue of abortion will come up. The same pattern has entrenched itself into Nigeria, that every 4 years, insecurity become part of the bargaining tool for re-election. Could we reform or redesign our democracy in such a way that the frequency of elections is reduced? Maybe one term of 8 years, or one term of 7 years, or one term of 10 years, or even regionalize our country. Every region have its own policies, its own people, like the way the UK, the UAE runs. Secondly,
Okay,
I'm going to talk.
Well, sorry, we don't have so much time. You're meant to, take 1 minute to wrap up. But thank you so much. Hopefully we'll have, another day where we get to discuss this. Thank you so much, Abraham and Elvis, for your time.
Thank you very much for having me.